Okay, so first things first, what we're going to discuss is how to go to a listing site. Say, I'm going to use Realtor.com for this one, and find a listing, and then target that realtor and see if you can create a presentation for them to get them interested, obviously, but we're going to create a packet out of the whole thing. So first things first, you're going to need to go to a listing site. So I've gone to Realtor.com, and I just basically looked up my zip code out here in Irvine. I found a listing, and you can see that all the information is basically there. Everything that I'm going to need for my open house flyer is already there. So all I'm going to do is start transferring information over to my open house flyer. So I'll go into Edge, and I'm going to create a new partner. And this partner is going to be named Shelly Armstrong. So I can actually copy and paste a lot of this too, so it'll save you a little bit of data entry. And then referred by, I'm just going to put Realtor.com because that's where I found it. Friendly name, you would use the friendly name to identify what type of report this is going to be. Now when you're doing a realtor listing flyer, especially if you're going to be doing multiple flyers for the same realtor, you want to use the friendly name for the street address of the property in question. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back here and just find the street address, and that is 141 Pathway. So I'm going to copy that, jump back over into Edge, and paste it in there. Now same thing, you're going to enter the property address again. Since I've already got it copied, I'm just going to go ahead and paste it. I know that this one is in Irvine, and let's find out what our zip is. 92618, perfect. And then we're going to enter some of the basic property features. So we got asking price, square footage, bedrooms, and bathrooms. So we've got that right here. If we scroll down just a tad, you can see that we've got 2 bedrooms, 3 baths. So I'm going to jump over and just fill those in. Now I'm going to go back and find out what our asking price is here. And we have $498,000. So I'm going to enter that into Edge. Square footage is, again, down at the bottom here. That's 1312. So I'll pop that over into Edge. Now the listing link, this is not going to show up on your flyer, but it's a great capture for you. In case you ever need to get back to this listing again, it's a good idea to capture the link so you can immediately just get back over to the page you were on. And you can do that by just selecting the link in the top of your browser, right click on it, hit copy, and then you can paste it in there. Now the next part is I need to assign the additional features. So you can see when you pop that open, there's a bunch of them that we already have predefined for you, so you're just going to check the boxes for the ones that apply. So I've got a single family home, and let's see here. Let's go through the bottom part here. You can see we've got the other amenities here. We've got laundry, dryer included, washer included, all that kind of good stuff. And if you look at down below, you've got interior features that you can select from all this. But basically, you're just going to go back and you're going to cherry pick the individual features that work for this. Let's say there's a garage, 2 or more. I'm not going to go through every one of them with you, but you guys understand where you can get this information. And then also make sure you've got 2 custom features here. So you can use these for any features that are not in this list. So if you find something specific over on the listing that you think you should draw attention to, like for instance 9-foot ceilings, that's kind of cool. So I'm going to put that in here. And let's jump over and see if there's any more that I can do. And this is actually a 3-story house. So I'm going to check the 2 or more stories. And it's a Spanish style, so let's put that one in there. And then make sure to check the boxes next to the custom features so they'll show up on your presentation. And you're going to hit the OK button. And then you're going to hit the right arrow. Now here's where you're going to actually upload the images. So in order to get the images, we're going to go back to that listing again. And there are 21 photos of this property. And you can see that if you were to just try and capture this one, it's kind of a small image. Instead, I'm going to go to larger photos because I want to see the full-size images so I can capture them. So now that I've got a bigger one, I'm going to right-click on it and do Save Image As. This is going to pop up a Save dialog box in my browser. It's going to allow me to save it. So I'm going to put it on my desktop. And I'm going to call this one House and just hit Save. Now once that is done saving to your desktop, you can hit the Browse button here in Edge. And I'm just going to start typing in house because that's what I saved it as. And now I've got my image in there. Now it's not necessary to upload more than one image for these presentations. Only one's going to show on your property flyer, so don't worry about uploading additional ones unless you want to be able to change them intermittently depending on when you send out the presentation. Now the picture name and description, don't bother editing these. This description does not show up anywhere. There's an additional area where you can put more property notes towards the end in the presentation screens. So I would just leave this exactly as it comes in. Don't even modify it. So now it's time to introduce a couple of financing options. So let's say that I'm going to show a 30-year FHA. And I'll go ahead and check the FHA box. Purchase price is $498. We already know that. So we'll put in our down payment percentage. And then the interest rate we can get on that, say it's about 4% on a 30-year term. Now closing cost details, if you've got your templates already created, this is definitely the way to go. Go into your detail, hit your drop down box, and you can see I've got my FHA 3.5% down. Pops in all my fees for me. All I need to do here is make any modifications that I see fit. So for instance, the contribution line, this is it's a default in my template, but if there was no contribution on here, I'd want to delete that item. And I don't have loan origination in here, so I'm going to add one more fee. I'm going to select my loan origination, and let's see, it's about $3,100, something like that, and then we'll tag it as an APR fee. Now one thing to remember, anytime you're doing purchases, you don't want to check these boxes to add to loan amount. This is actually going to increase your amount financed by the amount of these fees, so you don't want to do that necessarily for most purchases. You want this assessed at close rather than rolled into the loan. So I'm going to hit apply to loan. And then I need to make sure an account for my upfront MIP, so I'll pop that in. And note that in order to get this box down here to show up, what you do is after you type in your percentage rate here, hit the tab key on your keyboard, and it tabs off the field, and that'll actually open up this, this checkbox for you. So then we're going to go ahead and finance that in. So we want that added to the loan amount. And then we'll put our monthly escrows in. And make sure to account for your mortgage insurance. This is a high LTV FHA loan, so I'm going to do 1.35. You definitely do and this is only for FHA loans, by the way, you want to check the box to recalculate the MI payment every year based on the balance. For conventional loans with MI, they don't usually do that, so you wouldn't check this box. But use this one for FHAs. And then the most critical part here is we need this MI to carry for the life of the loan. So we're going to put our MI cutoff month at 360. So now I'm going to go ahead and add another product. Now for this one, let's say I've got a 5% down conventional, and I'm actually going to use the copy button. Now I'm going to copy that FHA loan I just put in so I don't have to redo all the data entry for this. So I'll copy from, select the FHA loan, and then all I'm going to do is remove this toggle. So I'll put it FHA equals no. I'm going to change my down payment percentage to 5%, and let's say I'm probably going to get about 4.25 on this one. Since I use the copy button, all my fees are already in there. I don't have to worry about this, but if I did need to edit any of this, I can go back into the closing cost detail and edit the fees as needed. And then the copy button also brought over my hazard and taxes, but in this case, I'm probably going to have a little bit lower MI percentage, so I'm going to use the conventional 0.9. I'm going to uncheck the Calc MI on balance box because this is conventional, and I need to remove the cutoff month here. So this is going to tell Edge that your MI just has to carry till 78%, then it can drop. So I've got two very basic products here. You can add more. Feel free to if you've got additional programs you'd like to show. I see a lot of people when they're doing this kind of comparison also showing another 5% down conventional with financed MI. That's a great one to show as well. But you want to get creative with this. This is going to be your introduction to this realtor partner. So you really want to showcase what you could do as an originator to basically provide some really creative financing options. But for this case study, I'm just going to use two products. And the analysis screen here, we don't really need to do anything in here. This is just kind of give you an overview of what the long-term effects are of each one of these loan products, but this isn't going to show on the flyer, so don't concern yourself too much with the analysis screen on an open house flyer. And now we need some contact data for the actual partner. So in order to find that, I'm going to go back to my listing, and I'm going to close out of these images. And this is my partner here. Now what I'm going to do is I probably want to go to this agent's website because I need to know a little bit more about her. But I do know she's with Coldwell Banker, so I'm going to copy this and jump back over to Edge, put that in for my company name. And then I do have a mobile number here, so we'll copy that and we'll throw that in the cell phone line. Now the email, sometimes it's kind of hidden, but you can see you can choose email agent, and it may or may not give you an actual email address. Let's see what it does in this case. Okay, so this actually gives us just a kind of a submittal form that we would push in, and it would email this particular partner. But there's another way to grab this information. We can go to the agent's website. All right, so there might be additional contact information. We do have the DRE number here, so that's kind of important. Let's capture that one right away. And we'll put that over in the license field. Now the website, we've got that, so we're going to copy that. And so far, the street address, not terribly important for the partner. You can actually reuse these fields for other things if you need to. Most people really don't care where the realtor lives or where their business address is, because the realtor is going to come to them. So oftentimes I use the street address for a secondary tagline, like best realtor in Irvine, something like that. And I just leave these other fields blank. There's kind of no reason to have them in there, so I'm not going to pop them in. Now I still have this problem with the email, so I've got to find out what this person's email is. Now a great way to do it is you can actually look them up on a social network, or you can look them up on Google. Let's just see if maybe there's an email down here somewhere. Okay, there's emails for the site itself, but not for this particular partner. So I'm going to look this person up on Google. Well, let's look into Contact Me real quick. Ah, there we go. We found it. So there's her email address. I'm going to copy that and pop it over into Edge. And it looks like it added a space there, so I'm going to get rid of that. All right, I've got all the necessary information for my partner. Didn't look like she published a fax number, which is probably okay. We don't really need one there. So we're going to skip the fax number field. And now we need images. And fortunately, she's got lots of images all over the place. So there's a really good one right here. Let's go back to the home screen because I think there's a little bit bigger one. There we go. I'm going to right-click on this one, do Save As. And this is actually going to save it as a web page. So if you're running Windows 7, this is something you might run into on occasion, is that people protect their images so that they can't be copied. If that's the case, you're going to need to use some kind of a snagging tool. Now in Windows 7, there's actually one built in. It's called the Snipping Tool. And if you go to All Programs, go to Accessories, you'll see the Snipping Tool right here. Now when you use this tool in Windows 7, it allows you to drag a box around whatever you want to capture. So I'm going to start it up here, use my left mouse button and drag a box around this image. And as soon as I let go of my mouse button, that is now an image that I can save. So I'm going to go ahead and hit the Save button. And I'll put it on my desktop. And I will just call this one Realtor. And then hit Save. And now that that's in there, I can jump back over to Edge. I'm going to browse for that image. And there we go. I've got her image in there. Now I need to get her logo. So let's check and see. It looks like she's got a good logo right here that we can use. See if we can save this as an image, or if we're going to have to snip. Yep, we're going to have to use the snipping tool again. Now you can also use other tools like Snagit or Jing. They'll do screen capture images just like this. So feel free to use other tools if you need to. And I'm going to save this one. I'll call this one Logo. Jump back over to Edge, hit the Browse button. Okay, so now I've got her image and her logo along with all of her contact information on this presentation. So I'm selecting the open house flyer. Make sure to check any that you want to include on the flyer. If you've put in multiple products and you want to actually remove a couple, you can uncheck the boxes here and they won't show up on your presentation at all. So now I need to decide what my presentation title is. Now oftentimes it's a good idea to use the same kind of titles as they use on the listing. In this case on Realtor.com there's not really a whole lot of titles, but if you went through her website you may find that she has featured listings here. And we could probably find this particular listing and find out what she's calling it. So you can see there's all the ones that she's got going on right now. But you can see some of these are showing recently updated. That's a great thing to put in there too. Some of them are just as simple as for the presentation title, you're going to put the property address if you'd like. I see a lot of people doing that. Some of them say, you know, own your dream home now. Now the pricing label, this is asking you what you want to call it. You know, is it going to be called the asking price? Is it going to be called the listing price? What do you want to call this? So I'm going to call it listing price. And actually I see a lot of people doing it this way too. Priced to move at, there we go. And then here's that notes field I was telling you about. If you want to put additional notes about the property, you can enter them in here. This is going to appear right beneath the payments on your open house flyer. So I'm just going to put some basics in here. Now the next step is you got to select the image that you want to use. Again, we allow you to upload multiples. I only did one in this case, so I've only got one to select, but you need to make sure and select it, otherwise it's not going to appear on your flyer. So you just left click on it and then hit the right arrow. And especially when you're going to be courting a new realtor partner, you definitely want to enable the call me button. This is going to put that green call me now button on your presentation so that they can immediately connect with you. If you run out of credits, obviously you won't have this option available. You need to purchase more call credits for that. But we give you all 3 by default, so you've got a couple to play with to see if that's a feature that'll work for you. Now you definitely want to check the box to notify you when the report is viewed so that you have a good idea of, you know, when you need to strike. And then you now have an option as well to send an Edge view alert to the partner. But in this case, since I'm sending this to the partner first, I'm not going to check this box. I don't want them to know that they just viewed this, basically. But what I would do is during my video presentation, I'm going to make them aware that I can also let them know when a borrower views the other presentation that I'm going to be showing them, or the open house flyer for that matter. So I'm going to leave that box unchecked for now, but I do need to put in a quote date. So I'll just select today's date. Now let's preview it and see what it looks like. Okay, so pretty straightforward here. You can see everything we entered is here. There's our title for the presentation. You can see we've also got the street address here. We've got our pricing label and our price. And our property features showed up here. I do have a little bit more room to add additional features if I needed to, so I probably want to go back in and fill those out a little bit more. But everything in here is all correct. I've got my realtor partner's image and logo, have her DRE number directly beneath her name. That's awesome. And then some just basic information about her. You can see we've got company name, and then there's that tagline I was telling you about. That's actually the street address field, but I used it for a different item. And then there's also a clickable email link for her. So just like yours, if somebody wanted to email you, they could click on this report and it'll fire up an email to you. Same thing. So you want to actually let your partner know that you can do this. And then your disclaimer, this comes in by default. So you know, if you need to edit your disclaimer information, you'd want to go back to your settings area inside Edge, make your edits. It's going to publish that same disclaimer to all your open house flyers. So just make sure you understand that the disclaimer is not editable on a single basis for a single report. It updates all your reports. Now additionally, and let me show you where that is in Edge real quick, and we'll come back to the video production part of this. If you need to edit your disclaimers, you're going to go to your settings area, and you're going to go to report templates, and you can see that each one of the reports in Edge has its own disclaimer area that you can edit. So if you wanted to have a default presentation title, a default pricing label, you can put those in there. This is the disclaimer. This is where you can edit it. Now additionally, if you want to put more compliance information on here, you can do edit extended disclaimer. And you have plenty of room here to put all the different stuff that you need, all the different license numbers. If you're licensed in multiple states, you'd want to have this here. If you have additional verbiage that you need to accompany all your presentations, this is where you're going to put it. So I'll put extended disclaimer, goes here. And then in order to save this, all you have to do is tab to a different tab in your settings. So I'm just going to click on Feed Templates. I'm good to go. That's already saved my report templates. If I come back into it, you can see that everything's still there. My extended disclaimer is saved. It's up there. So I'll go ahead and cancel out. And let's go back into the actual presentation. So back in the presentation, now it's time for me to actually append a video. So before I do that, let me address a couple of questions that are in the box real quick. Nyla's question, can you also do a rent versus own with this flyer? No, actually the co-branded presentations that are available are only open house flyer and seller buy down flyer. You can do a rent versus own, and you can send it along with this flyer. I think it's a great idea, honestly, but it's going to be a separate presentation. And one thing to remember is that the total cost and the rent versus own, they don't have the co-branding on it. So that's why I recommend sending them 2 presentations for your initial packet. So the other part of it is, because you're going to be adding video to it, you're going to use the video to do the cross-selling. You're going to use the video for your co-branding on your total cost or on your rent versus own. So I'll show you that once we get over into our TCA here. And I'll show you can actually flip it between rent versus own and total cost anytime you'd like. Dennis's question, can you change the color of the heading? Can you make it larger? Actually, Dennis, you can. Let me show you how. Now, one of the things that's available here in Edge, and you certainly don't have to do this, but it is available for you, is if you know HTML tagging, you can tag these to change font sizes and change colors. So say, for instance, font size equals, and I'm going to do +2. So I'm going to make it 2 pixels larger than it is right now. And then go to the end, and then I'll close my font tag. And again, I don't expect everybody to know how to do this, and you certainly don't have to, but it is available if you want to use this type of tagging. And let's preview the report and check it out. And Dennis, to answer your question a little bit further about the color, you can change the color on it. What you'll need to do, though, with the color is you'll use a color tag inside that font, and you'll need to use the hex code for it. It's a 6-digit number that you would use that represents a specific color. But if you'd like to see a sample on that one, shoot us an email over at support, and I'll give you a couple of samples on how that would work. And Lisa's question was about the full disclosure and compliance info. We did cover that. That's going to show up in the more info section. So that's where you would do it. Okay, good. Thanks, Lisa. And Mike's question, is there a way to flip-flop the name showing the realtor first and the loan officer second? There isn't. Actually, these are static placeholders. So the only way you could actually make this show the realtor's information is if you changed your settings in Edge to show that realtor's information. But I don't recommend doing that because it alters it for all of your reports. So definitely not a good idea. These ones cannot be changed in terms of where they appear. Todd's question, how do agents send this out to prospects, and can they embed the link on the MLS data page for property? Okay, so one way to do it is once the agent receives this particular presentation, they can actually hit share. And when they hit share, they can share it to Facebook or Twitter, but it's also copied this link to the clipboard. This is the link that you sent them as well. It doesn't change at all. So in order to actually share it out, they can send this link directly to their prospects, their borrowers. They can put it on their website. They can actually put it on the MLS data page, but they have to put it in a notes section. It's not going to be clickable because they frown on putting clickable links on the MLS page, but they can add it as part of the property description. So I have seen that happen before. I'm not well versed enough to know if there's any compliance implications on that one, so you probably want to check into it and just make sure. But this is the realtor that's going to be doing it, so it kind of leaves you out. You don't have to worry too much about it. But hopefully that answers the question there for you, Todd. All right, so now let's go ahead and create a video for it. So back in Edge, we're going to hit Generate Link. And then we're going to hit Add Audio Video. Now when you do that, it brings up the same analysis we were just looking at. And in fact, I always recommend before you send this out to your partner, check how it looks in print. Hit the print button here down at the bottom, and it's going to pull up a print preview for you. And the reason I recommend checking this is because if you use too long of product names for your loan products, they can actually push some information out of view. And the only way to really know what it looks like in print is to do a print preview just like this. So you can see my print preview looks good. I don't have any problems here at in the top level. I don't have any spacing issues. My loan products look good. I don't have to worry about them being pushed off the page or anything like that. My property notes all fit, and you can actually fit quite a bit of quite a lot of info in here. So feel free to go ahead and give a good description of the property. All the logos and photos look good. Looks like all the property or all the contact information is filled out. My disclaimer looks great here. I've got my page number and I've got my quote dates in both places, up at the top and at the bottom here. So I'm satisfied that this is going to look good in print. I don't have to do anything additional. So now it's just a matter of creating my video. Dean's question: how did you get to the generate link? So what I did, and let me go back a couple of steps here. So in the presentation screen, first you select your report, and you're going to select the open house flyer. Then you hit the right arrow, and you're going to be asked for your presentation titles, your labels, and additional notes. Then you're going to select your image. And the last step, hit the generate link button here. Now, I should also make you guys aware, for those of you who are brand new users, we use what's called jump buttons inside Edge. So you can hover your mouse over a particular area, and you can see that now I can go immediately to that FHA loan if I need to. Same thing applies on the presentation screen. If you just want to go to the last screen of the presentation, hover over presentation here and choose preview. And that takes you to this screen right here where you can do a preview, where you can generate your link, and where you can add your video. So I just hit generate link. Now at this point, I can leave this up. I'm eventually going to have to copy this so I can paste it into an email to this partner. But at this point, I want to hit add audio video. So the next step is you're going to record a message. Now, if you haven't set up your video camera yet, you'll probably want to right-click on the screen here and hit Settings. And then just make sure that your webcam is selected. Make sure the appropriate mic is selected and that when you talk into it, it bounces. For the storage information, I just leave it unlimited. It doesn't cause any problems when you do that. And then always check to allow and remember the settings. That way the Flash Player doesn't ask you every single time you want to try and do a video if you're going to allow it. And then the hardware acceleration, leave this box checked unless your computer is about 10 years old. If it's that old, then you want to uncheck it because you may actually have a video card that won't really support direct flash. If that's the case, you'll actually find that you'll get kind of a greenish checker box look inside the video player. But it's very rare. I've only seen that on a couple of occasions. So you do happen to see a green checker box kind of thing in your video, uncheck this box here, and that should fix the problem. Okay, so one other thing I wanted to draw your attention to before we start this video is I actually wrote up a little list for you. And this was Realtor Packet Instructions. So this is available for you. If you guys want a copy of this, we're happy to send it over to you. Just shoot us an email over at support@mortgagecoach.com. We'll get it to you right after the call today. But some real basic instructions here for your partner packet. We've already done number one. We created an open house flyer with several unique financing options. Now it's time to do the video. So what do we need to have in this video? Here are the key points. One, you want to introduce yourself and your practice. Obviously, you guys are used to doing that. Any face-to-face meeting you have, you're introducing yourself and what company you work with. The next thing is state the reason for the contact. Now, in this case, I'm reaching out to a realtor that I've never talked to before, and I'm reaching out using a different kind of medium than most people would. So I'm not directly just calling them on the phone. I'm reaching out via video. So the reason I'm reaching out to you is I noticed your listing at 141 Pathway in Irvine has been on the market for a little while, and I wanted to see if I could offer you some creative financing options so that you can relay these to your prospects. Third part, and this is something Roberto Monaco suggests, engage the person with a question relative to something they care about. So you guys all know what realtors care about. Moving the listing, right? They want to get this out and they want to make their commission on it. Now, obviously, you're not going to ask them a question about their commission, but you can ask them a question, something like, do you currently partner with a loan originator who can provide detailed analysis for the loan programs offered? Real simple question, but make them think, well, do I? Wait a minute, no, I don't. Is that something I need as a realtor? Absolutely they do. So if you're going to ask a question in here, make sure your call to action at the end reintroduces that question to them with a solution. So we've engaged the person with a question relative to something they care about. Then we're going to describe the natures of the services we provide. So we're going to reference the other presentation. Now, as Nilu said earlier, you can do a rent versus own if you want. That's perfectly fine. It's a great tool for using with realtor partners. For today's discussion, we're going to use a total cost analysis. But I'm going to reference that I've also created an additional presentation for you. I'd like you to click on that second link now so you can see what it looks like. This is a cost of waiting presentation, and you're going to explain just basically a little bit about what that is, and make sure to let them know that that's going to be a borrower-facing report that you can generate for any of their prospective borrowers. Now, financing options, I've only shown 2 options here on my open house flyer, so this is going to be a really brief part to my video. I'm just going to let her know that for this particular flyer, I'm showing you a 30-year FHA and a 5% down conventional, but these can be edited on the fly. If you'd like to see other loan programs, I've got plenty that I can offer you at different down payment rates with different types of MI functionalities. So there's all kinds of things you can talk about in terms of what are these financing options, but keep it very brief. You really don't want to go in too depth on what you're talking about with the financing. You're going to lose them there. Remember, this is just a reach out to try and gain that trust, that initial trust, and establish a relationship. The next step, tell the partner, and this is during the video, this is all during this video, tell the partner you can record a new video on the same presentation, but have it directed at the prospective borrowers and shared to social media. So this is the service you're offering them. You can take this presentation, it's already branded for both of you, you can record a new video on it that's directed towards borrowers, and then that can describe, the financing options directed towards them. So no longer a reach out to the realtor, you're just going to change the video, repurpose it for the borrower. And then you're letting them know that you can share this and they can share this on their social media. And this is pretty important because most open house flyers just a piece of paper. So the idea behind this is you want to let them know that there's multiple media that you can get this across on. They can publish this to their website. They can publish this to the MLS like we were talking about earlier. They can publish this straight over to social media like Facebook or Twitter. And then you can do the same. So for instance, you can let them know that part of the service you provide for your realtor partners is that you publish their open house flyer links on your Facebook fan page. Now the end part, call to action. Got to have a call to action at the end. As I said here, it can be as simple as telling the agent to call you for more details, but make it time sensitive. An example is call me as soon as possible so we can work together to ensure our mutual clients get the necessary information to make an educated mortgage decision. Something as easy as that is very simple, but you need to call them to action. Otherwise, you've wasted your time on the entire presentation because there's nowhere to go afterwards. Now, the next steps here are after you're done with the open house flyer. So after you have created your video, you've got it on this flyer, you've sent this out to the realtor partner. Well, actually, before you've sent it to the realtor partner, but you've created this link, you've got it ready to go. You record the link maybe in an email or something like that, and then you're going to move on to your next presentation. Now, the next presentation can be anything, depending on what you want to show. I'm going to show a cost of waiting presentation today, but as Nilu was talking about earlier, you can do a rent versus own too. In fact, you can even do both at the same time. So I'll actually show you that. So I'm going to go ahead and close out this report. I do need to make a note of this link, so I would copy it, and I'll probably paste it into just a new email with nothing in it yet, so that I have that recorded. And then I'm going to exit out of this presentation, and I'm going to go to a new client. Now, one thing I'm doing here, you notice that I created this entire open house flyer from scratch. Now, the client presentation, this is one you can reuse. You don't have to create it from scratch every time because it's going to have very basic functionality in it. You're just going to show a couple of programs against each other. You don't have to worry about the additional co-branding because you're just putting sample borrower information in. and you're going to use your video to cross-sell the realtor. So let's take a look at that. So we'll go ahead and create a new client. And before we get started with that, I see there's a couple of questions in the box. Let me go ahead and address those. Tim's question, what are you typing in the subject line and the body of the email to get them to open it up? That's a great question, Tim. The ones I see coming across my desk, obviously I don't originate, so I don't send these directly to realtor partners, but the ones that I see coming across my desk are, usually having to do with the property. So they'll look at, how long has this been here? When was the last time this was refreshed? And they'll target market towards that. They'll also check out, the agent's website, view their other listings, and see generally what area they're working in, and they'll target that. So something like, I'm interested in partnering with you on your Irvine properties to help you move them faster. Something like that. It doesn't have to be, huge and attractive. It just can't look like spam. If you make it look like spam, they're going to delete it. So use something that looks professional in the subject line. Make sure your English is correct. Don't misspell anything. Those are very important factors. And then make sure to, when you're going through the body of your email, you want to make sure and reference both of the links and let them know there's videos attached, because otherwise they won't know to click them, or they'll see them and won't understand what they're going to be. So prep it before you put the link in there and say, please click on the link below to see this personalized presentation for you. Something like that. But Tim, I'll see what I can find, and actually that's a great question to post to the Facebook fan page to see what other originators are using for their subject line when they're sending out to realtors. There's got to be a ton of responses out there. So I'd like it if you could publish that to the fan page. I'm going to do the same to my personal page and to our Facebook fan page, and see what kind of responses I can get for you there. Marie's question, are you putting this packet info in the form of video in Edge? Yes, absolutely. So what I'm doing is the end result of this packet is just going to be a single email that goes out to this prospect. And the email is going to have a link to this open house flyer with my intro video. And then it's also going to have a link to my cost of waiting analysis with a cross-selling video. Joel's question, I was thinking of creating a general open house flyer that is very detailed with a video selling the features and how to use it to create additional exposure for listings. Every morning I could then email it to the realtors, and if they're interested in getting one created, they could email me the details of their listing. Do you think that's a good idea? I personally think this would create interest with just one presentation instead of structuring individual ones before I know if there's interest there. So there's two ways to look at that, Joel. I do totally understand. I mean, it's a little legwork to put one of these together. But one of the things that you got to remember is they know that too. So if you've taken the time to build one that's specific to them, I think you're going to have a little bit greater impact. If you have something that is very generic, doesn't have their images on it, doesn't have that co-branding feel to it, it's really hard to get the point across that this presentation is really supposed to be for you, Miss Shelley Armstrong. So the whole idea is co-brand it with them, spend the extra time on it, especially when you're prospecting. I mean, you don't need to send out 100 of these a week. You can cherry pick the properties you're interested in, cherry pick the agents you're interested in working in. Matter of fact, you can even do a little research on the agent. Go to their LinkedIn profile. You can even find out what their closing numbers are, so you can target specific realtors that happen to be the upper echelon of the market. So I would say, my personal opinion, Joel, I would say stay away from doing a generic on the open house, but you can keep that secondary presentation generic so that you don't have to build that every time. All right, so Joel also asked if we can send the Realtor Packet instructions over. Just send us a note over at support. I can't send those to you right now on the call, but if you send us a note over at support@mortgagecoach.com, we'll get that out to you. John's question, typically the video is in the lower left. Can you move it, and how? Actually, John, it shows up in the lower right when it comes up in the presentation. So let's open that up real quick. So this is actually what your partner would see when they first click on it. Now, I didn't record a video, but it would show up on the bottom right, and it actually tends to cover their image. So what I would tell them during the video is, and we just added this feature, when there's a video attached to any of these presentations, there's an additional button down here to hide the message. So in the beginning of my video, I might tell them, you can click the button right underneath my body here to hide the message, and you can see the entire presentation. So it will continue playing the video while they do that. Matter of fact, let's throw something on there real quick. before we move on, just so you guys can see what this looks like. Okay, so there I am. Hi, everybody. You see where the video actually lines up here. It does show up in the bottom. Now, a couple of things you can tell your partners is that they can actually click on your name and they can drag the video window around. I'm going to go ahead and record a brief snippet here just so I have something recorded and I can show you what this looks like. So we'll hit stop there. Okay, so now that is appended to my presentation. So if I go and open that presentation again, I'm just going to paste the link into a new browser window. This opens the presentation and the video automatically starts on the right lower hand side. So there it is, it pops up. You can see it starting there. I just paused it right there, but this is the new hide message button. When you hit that, it hides the message, but it still keeps talking, so they can still listen to you while they're looking at your presentation. This is effective on all presentations, so on a total cost, open house, whichever presentation you like. That's the one that you definitely want to draw their attention to so that they can see the entire report. Phase question, where did you enter the Own Your Dream Home? That was back inside Edge in the presentation screens, and I'm going to go back just a couple of screens here so you can see it. It's right before you choose the image. So that is right here, the presentation title up at the top. You can see I've used font tags, but you don't have to do this. You would just type in whatever you want the title to be right here, and that shows up at the very top of the report. Okay. Just a second here, guys. We got a couple more questions, and then we'll get over into the total cost analysis. Todd's question, can the agent share the link directly to a prospect on their Facebook page? They can, but I would discourage that. And the only reason I say that is nobody wants just something new to show up on their page without permission. So personally, I wouldn't post something on the agent's page unless I had their permission to do so. In fact, I would prefer it if they view the presentation, then hit the share button and share it to their own page. Now they can, and this is, I'll show you what this looks like. If the agent wants to, they can hit share. They can choose Facebook. And as long as they're logged into Facebook, it's going to bring up a post. And you can see that they can share it on their own timeline. They can share it on a friend's timeline. Again, not really recommended here. You can share it to a group. You can share it in a private message. And I don't have a fan page attached to this Facebook account, but if I did, it would say on your fan page. That is the ideal place to share it. And the Realtor partner can do the same thing. They can share it on their fan page. You can share it on your fan page. But again, stay away from sending it over to somebody's direct page without their permission. Have them do it. Just let them draw their attention to that share button down at the lower right. Now, you can also, when they're doing the sharing, they can write stuff about it. They can even edit the name of this. So, you know, they put open house flyer, something like that. Or you can actually put the presentation title, or you can even put the 141 pathway here. But when you hit share link, it's going to show up wherever you chose to show it up. And once it's there, you know, you can always remove it from Facebook. But just remember, it's a live link. So if you change anything inside Edge, that link is always going to reflect your most recent changes. Okay. Dennis's question, can we change the name of the link so it also references the property? This link cannot be changed, but what you can do is when you enter this into your email, and I'll have to open up my email to show you this. When you enter it into your email, you can mask a link. You don't have to keep it exactly what it is. So for instance, you can tell it it's going to be a certain set of text instead of, you know, what this link looks like. So let's see if I can show you that real quick. Okay, I've got an email message up. So for instance, you can click here to view your personalized Edge presentation. Now notice there's no link in here. Now if we want to, we can just paste the link in. But we can also change the way this looks. So if I don't want to have this link showing up, what I can do is I can select the text that I want to be a link, right-click on it, choose Hyperlink. Now the text to display is going to be click here, but where do I want it to point to? I want it to point to my Edge report. So in the address line here, I'm going to just paste in my Edge link and hit OK. Now what I've done is now I've got a clickable link. So if they were to hover their mouse over it, they can click on it and it'll take them immediately to the Edge presentation. All right, so I'm going to close out of that guy. Harlow's question, for listings that have been on the market for a while, why not use the seller buy down? Absolutely, I think it's a great idea. The seller buy down is a wonderful presentation for those that have been on the market for a while, especially the higher priced properties. For today's particular packet, we're just using an open house flyer, but the seller buy down also offers the co-branding, so feel free to use that in place of the open house if you'd like. It's a great strategy. If you haven't seen what it does, it's a very powerful way to show that a seller-funded rate reduction is of benefit to everybody, and it's usually a 4-to-1 benefit over dropping a purchase price. So it's a great tool to be able to use. Feel free to use them interchangeably, but just remember, since you're creating these, for each person on a case-by-case basis, you can do both if you'd like on the same presentation. So it's up to you in terms of which one you want to use. For today's discussion, we're just going to use the open house flyer and an accompanying total cost. Yvonne's questions, sorry I was a little late to the webinar, how do you get their images? So the way I got their images was I actually went to the property listing here on Realtor.com, and then I hit view the agent's website, and that took me over here. And then you can right click on these and hit copy image or save image as, and I did that for both the Coldwell Banker sign and the image. If for some reason like this one is actually, this one's not a protected image, so you could do save image as, but in her home screen, and I'll show you this, her other image was a protected image, so I showed everybody how to use the Snipping Tool to grab a copy of this image right here. Now, I did record this session, so this one is definitely going to be available for you. I'm going to make this available in the coaching call archive, just basically next to all of our Tuesday calls, so if you want to revisit this, feel free to go to our mortgagecoach.com website, hover over Community, and choose Coaching Call Archive, and you'll have a recorded version of this. All right. Dean's question, since the initial video box does cover the partner image, has Edge thought about moving the format so the box should be between the two boxes in the co-branding? The problem is it depends on the size of the screen the person's viewing in terms of where that box and where it's going to show up and what it's going to cover. So we were considering moving it up in maybe the top middle of the presentation, but it's not been enacted yet in development. But it is a good idea. We're certainly considering that and possibly try and get that in there in a future release. Joel had asked, what's a support email? The support email is support@mortgagecoach.com, or you can always just hit the help button in your Edge, and that'll take you directly over to our knowledge base where you can submit a ticket. Susan's question, please explain when do I tell them to use the show button? I don't ever use that. So it's such a new feature, Susan, that you probably wouldn't have even seen it before. But if you do have a video attached, you're going to tell them during the video that they can hit the hide message button. And you can see that I have it shown right now, but they can hit the hide message button directly beneath you, and it will hide the video presentation but keep it playing. And then at the end of your video presentation, when it's done, I mean, they can show the message again, but when it's done, it's done. There's no reason to really bring it back up. But the next time they open the presentation, it will be up by default. Tim's question, if I'm creating an information Edge presentation, is there a way to label the presentation so I can follow who is opening the report, such as Facebook post, Coldwell Banker Agent Group, or Iowa Realty Group? If so, is there a way to copy the Edge report so I don't have to recreate each time? Not really. See, what it gives you, Tim, when it sends you the alert on your presentation being viewed, all it does is tell you what the name of the presentation is. Now, on a partner presentation, it's your presentation for Shelley Armstrong has been viewed. Now, if you want to, you could potentially change this first and last name field to indicate what it is, say a Facebook post, Coldwell Banker Agent Group. But remember, that does drop some of the branding off for the partner. So I really don't think it's going to be the perfect method for you. Try it out, see if it works for you. But ideally, you can copy any presentation. So if you need to, you can take this presentation, go into your analysis screen, hit the copy analysis button, and create a new partner out of this same analysis, so you don't have to redo the internal work. But you're still going to need to put in the partner co-branding anyway. So it is what it is. Six of one, half a dozen of the other in terms of workflow there. Dean's question, I copied an image of a realtor for a presentation. It was really small. Is there some way to increase the size so it's the same size as ours in the presentation? There isn't a way to increase a small image, Dean, because what would happen is we get very pixelated and stretched out. So I wouldn't recommend doing that, but what I would recommend doing is Google that person. They've got images everywhere. You'll find them on their Facebook pages. You'll find them on LinkedIn. You'll find them just in general Google searches. And there's always nice large images. Remember, these guys are salespeople too. So they get their image out as much as possible, and you can always find a bigger one out online. Helen's question, do you have time to go through the cash versus purchase loan? I have a problem with showing 100% down payment. I can't do it today, Helen. Actually, we're going to be going over a total cost, but I'll show you that toggle. I know we were discussing that in support yesterday. I'll show you that toggle when we get to one of the products. It should make sense for you. Fred's question, are the open house flyer and the seller buy-down presentations given different links? Absolutely, sir. So when you're in the presentation and you select your report, you have the option of selecting either one. And as you go forward, when you generate a link, there'll be one individual for the open house and another individual for the seller buy-down flyer, depending on which one you choose. So I've already done one for the open house flyer. If I wanted to do a seller buy-down for this one as well, I can hit seller buy-down, truck through these parts here, generate a link, and it'll be different from the one I did from the open house flyer. Michael's question, do you have any videos saved on your website covering seller buy-downs? Absolutely. So actually, if you hit help in our Edge presentation here, this takes you over to our knowledge base. And if you scroll down just a tad, let's see which one it's in. Matter of fact, we can search for it. We'll just do buy down and hit search. There you go. So creating a seller buy down flyer in Edge. This actually will give you a full walkthrough on how to create it and how to sell it. So it tells you all the great factors of what makes the seller buy down a special approach to financing. All right, so let's get over to our total cost here. I know we're running a little bit over today. It's 9:55 already. I'm going to keep going on this call until we're done with the presentation. So if you guys need to duck out early, feel free to do so. But we're going to cover the total cost analysis part of this. So I'm going to bring up that partner packet instructions here, and we're going to go to our next one. So the next part is build a TCA for the sample borrower. Now this is the one you can reuse and copy as needed because you're not going to put any real sensitive borrower information on here. You're just showing a few loan products against each other, but you're going to be altering the video every time. So you basically copy this presentation, put a new video on it, put it into your packet for that specific realtor. Now the ones I would recommend on the total cost, a purchase power presentation is always great. This is just showing different purchase amount options, a cost of waiting, or a combination of the two. As Nailu said earlier, you can even use a rent versus own for this. It doesn't have to be a total cost. Whatever you think are going to be the most valuable assets to show both a open house flyer, which is just basically giving them a taste of the co-branding, and then the total cost, which is all of your long-term analysis points. This is the one that shows you as the mortgage professional. So you're using the open house flyer to court the business. You're using your total cost analysis to educate the consumer and cross-sell the realtor. All right, so let's go ahead and do the actual data entry on this cost of waiting analysis. So I'm going to go ahead and bring up a new client. And you can call this whatever you want, or you can make it a marketing report. This is probably better because you don't have an actual borrower name. I might even say, own your dream house today again. Now, if we wanted to make this a rent versus own, we can toggle rent here, and then all we're going to do is pop in our products there and finish out the Edge presentation, and it's going to be a rent versus own. For today's discussion, we're going to do this as a total cost. So I'm going to choose own here. And then friendly name, this is the one that you're going to use to reference where this belongs to. So this was Shelley Armstrong. I'm going to call it Realtor Prospect. Now the reason I'm doing this is when I go to view all the presentations in Edge, I want to be able to identify who this one's for. I mean, right now it just says Own Your Dream House Today. So as I'm making copies of these and attaching them to different packets for different realtors, you want to make sure you identify which one you sent to which person. So now we're going to choose Purchase a New Home. Now this is the only goal in here that has any logic in it. When you select any of the other goals, it's going to walk you through a refinance. But if you select Purchase a New Home, it omits the need to enter a current mortgage. So all I'm going to do is put in my property value, and this is really just purchase price. And if we go back over to our listing, that was $498. So I'll put $498. And I don't need to fill out the other fields. They're in black. They're not required. In fact, most of those were for refinance, so I don't need to put those in. This information here, not terribly important unless you have a specific borrower in mind. But if you want to be able to show tax benefit, you can generally, choose maybe 25, maybe 28%. But I'll choose a tax bracket of 25%. And I'd probably want to make a note somewhere on the report that it's using a 25% tax bracket. If you want to incorporate the MCC tax credit, you can do that as well. If it's offered in your state, you can hit tax credit. You can set the annual amount of the credit percentage, and then you can set the maximum for what they can take. Now, if you don't know what the MCC tax credit is, do a little research on it, find out if you've got it available, but it allows a first-time home buyer to write off a certain chunk of interest per year. And it's got a cap on it, but it's not and I shouldn't have said write-off, it's actually a credit. So rather than being just a tax write-off, they're getting this as a credit instead. So many people actually use this to help qualify borrowers based on this additional fund they're going to have for the entire year. So look into it, see if it's something that your lender can offer, and if so, check it out, see if it might work for you. But for this case, I'm not going to use the MCC credit, I'm just going to show the tax benefit. And I don't need to fill in the mins and maxes here. I'm just going to go straight over to the products. Okay, so for this one, I'm going to do 30 fixed FHA. And this is not a refi, but this is an FHA loan. I'll pop in my percentages here. All right, so now I've got the basics in there. I'm going to put in my upfront MIP. And then I'm going to pop in a closing cost template. So I'll select that FHA template again. And let's get the contribution out of there, and I'm going to pop in another fee for loan origination. And then I'm going to hit apply to loan. So now I've got my fees in there. I've got all my goodies ready to go. Just need to put in my escrows. Harlow's question, good question. Why wouldn't you use the copy button for the FHA loan? The reason is this is the first product in this presentation. I don't have one to copy from. However, you can always save your individual products as templates. And when you do that, they'll be available in the drop-down box in the first screen of each product. So let me show you what that looks like real quick. So now I've got a 30-year FHA template, and this is for the entire product. So that incorporates the closing cost fees, that incorporates the escrows. It's going to incorporate everything. So let's pop these in here. Okay, so let's save this as a template one more time, now that I've got all my escrows in there. And then I'm going to add another product. Now at this point, I can copy the first screen. That's great. Now I actually have something to copy from, so I could use it. I could also use add product from template here. And you can see I've got a bunch of them in here. My latest one is this one right here. So all I need to do is it pulls in the template. I can do 498. And it automatically fills in everything else for me. So as I go through the screens, you can see my closing costs are there, my upfront MIPs there, and actually it didn't save my escrows for some reason, so I'll have to check out why. I think I may have selected the wrong one there. But if we're doing a cost of waiting presentation, one of the things we're doing is we're going to show a specific loan scenario, and then we're going to show what happens if they wait and rates go up. So I'm going to show the FHA loan, and I'm going to show for my second product that same loan, but what happens if the rates go up, if you waited too long. Oh, let's go back a screen here. And I'm going to use one of the jump buttons here so I can get just immediately back over to that product because I need to rename it. So I'll call this one wait rates up, or go up even. And then I'm going to alter this, and it's up to you in terms of how much of a rate change you want to use here. I like using a full point. You guys have seen the volatility of the market lately. If you're watching Rate Watch at all, you saw that this morning we opened up down huge. So we're expecting to see some rate increases today. So that kind of volatility, I mean, if they wait 1 month, it can easily be a 1-point change between their rates. So I've got two products in there. I've got this 30 fixed FHA and then wait for the rates to go up. And I need to pop in my mortgage insurance on this one. All right, perfect. Now, if you want to, you can add more products. Now, remember, on the open house flyer, I showed a conventional and an FHA. So on this one, I'm going to show a conventional. So I'm going to use that copy button. I'm going to copy the FHA, and then I'm just going to deselect the toggle. So it's not an FHA loan. I'm going to hit no. I'm going to make this a 5%. And then I'll alter the rate accordingly. Change the name on this one to be conventional 5% down. Since I used the copy button, all my fees are already in there. They're ready to roll. And then I just need to modify my monthly escrows. And you can see that we're not going to use the FHA version anymore, so we're going to go conventional. It's 0.9. And then we don't need the checkbox here, and we don't need to carry it for the life of the loan for conventional, so we're going to zero out that cutoff month. Now we're going to add one more product, and this is going to be conventional when the rates go up. So I'll call this one, same thing, wait, conventional rates up. Oops. And then I'll copy from, and I'm going to copy the conventional loan that I did, and hit OK. And then I'm going to increase my rate. Now I'm done with all the products. They're already in there. Things look good. Now I just need to go to the analysis screen and check this out, see what everything looks like. You can see that the wait rates go up on the FHA is the highest cost per month, so everything else is benchmarked against it. If you want, you can benchmark it against any of these products. So if I wanted to bench it against that conventional 5% down, I can hit the drop down here, choose the 5% down, and you can see that now I'm showing a cost of waiting or a cost of doing one of these other loans. Now you can do the same thing on the short-term savings benchmark if you'd like. It's up to you in terms of how you want to show these. If you want to show them as a cost or as a negative savings, both of them relay a sense of urgency. I think red tends to help do that in a little bit better fashion, but completely up to you. And then for your long term, you want to do total interest in MI paid. And you can see that the rates up in both equations are really high interest in MI. So it obviously benefits the borrower to buy now using conventional or FHA. So the last part is contact information we don't have to worry about. This is a marketing report. We don't even need this information up here. We can skip that entirely, and we're going to go straight over and generate a total cost. So we can choose total cost here. We're going to, and if you want to, remember, you can uncheck these boxes. If they say, you know what, I don't even want to see the FHA loan, it's just too high priced, prices us out of it, great. We can remove both of those from the presentation and they won't show up. Now, payment notes, I always like to include whether taxes and insurance are included in the payment or not. In this case, I did include them, so I'm just going to alter my text. And then if you want to, you can put additional verbiage for the sidebar text of each one of these fields. These pop open when the borrower or the realtor partner hits the More Info button on the total cost analysis. They'll see the graph for this. They'll see the actually, when they hit More Info, they'll see the data behind the graph, and then they'll see these notes that are next to them. So I'm going to go ahead and generate a presentation now. So we'll generate the link and put a quote date on it. Hit generate link. And now it's time to do a video for this one. Now for the video on the total cost analysis, remember, you're going to be cross-selling this for the Realtor partner. So you can use the same kind of process as you used for the video you did for the Realtor. But remember, you're actually going to aim this one at the borrower. So first thing, obviously, introduce yourself and your partnership with the Realtor. Now, Shira McKenzie did a great job on one of these in a coaching call recently. If you guys would like a link to that, send us a note over at support. We'll get you a link to her presentation. But what she had done was just a very basic introduction and cross-sell the Realtor. She talks about, why she went after this Realtor. She aims it at the borrower and says, if you're getting this message, you're working with the #1 Realtor in Irvine, that kind of thing. But check out what she says on the verbiage there. But make sure to introduce yourself and your partnership with the Realtor. The reason for contact, well, this Realtor partner has referred you to me because they wanted to make sure that you had the opportunity to make an educated mortgage decision based on whatever financing options we can get you. And then again, engage the person with a question relative to something they care about. In this case, you're talking to a borrower, so it's going to be their new home. Have you ever wanted to live in Beverly Hills? Questions can be so general, but they engage the person listening, because then they ask themselves in their mind, just briefly, they're going to ask themselves that question, and now they're engaged. But find something that you'd like to talk about, whether it's the prospect of a first-time home buyer finally getting into their new house so they can start their family. Maybe it's the cost savings. Are you considering an FHA loan right now? Let's take a look at what conventional 5% down can do with financed MI, something like that. But you want to pick a point that they're going to care about and ask them a question. Briefly describe the financing options. Again, you don't want to go into too much detail here. You just want to give them enough to look at the presentation, understand what it's basically trying to show, and then at the end you're going to call to action because you need to explain everything to them. You'd like to explain it in more detail, make sure they have all the necessary information. Tell the borrower that the presentation can be altered at any time depending on their needs. So if you're interested in a different type of down payment, if you're interested in a different type of loan program, let me know. I can put this in the presentation on the fly. And the call to action at the end, and cross-sell your Realtor partner again. Call me or Shelley or Armstrong today so we can work together to ensure you have all the necessary information to make an educated home buying decision. I know I use that phrase a lot, guys, but it's pretty important. There's some key hitting points that we need to care about as mortgage originators, and one of them is obviously we don't want the stigma that happened 10 years ago where people said, I had no idea what kind of a loan I was getting into. You're battling that here by educating them ahead of time. Before anything gets signed, before a GFE even comes out, you're educating them on what the loan process looks like and how you can help them make a good decision. All right, so the last part here is after we've created our video, we've now got 2 links that we're going to send out to our Realtor partner. We're going to compose a nice email around it, and then we're going to wait. And once you get the click that the partner has viewed that partner video, that's usually when it's time to strike. It's time to give them a call, let them know that I just wanted to follow up with you on the presentation I sent you. I had done a listing presentation just to show you what our co-branding can look like. Whatever you got to say to them on the call, but basically you're going to take them into your packet. You're going to show them, okay, well, I've done this. I can do this for any of your listings, and it's going to be co-branded with both of us, and we can make sure to help each other to grow our own client base. And make sure to let them know that there's a second presentation that I'd like you to take a look at. This is what borrowers usually see. This is how I'm going to help cross-sell our relationship to my borrowers and your borrowers. And then you're done. Now, once you've got that packet in place, when you want to do a new one, obviously for each listing, you're going to need to create a new flyer. For each Realtor partner as well, you want to create a new record here in your partners. But you can copy this TCA out. You don't have to recreate this every time. When you want to do that, you can go to View All, and then you're going to find this, and this one was called Own Your Dream House. There it is. I'm going to hit the little arrow next to it, and it drops down, and you can see that this one is labeled Shelly Armstrong Realtor Prospect. So this is the one I did for Shelly. I want to create another one. So I'm going to hit Copy Analysis, and I'm going to do it under the current client. And the reason is I'm going to have all my sample presentations under this one listing called Own Your Dream House Today. Now all I'm going to do is I'm going to change my friendly name here, and I'll put whatever the new realtor's name is, and then I'm going to tailor the video for that particular realtor partner and then send it out. So the total cost analysis is the one where it's going to literally take you 3-4 minutes to finish out creating a copy of this. The one that's going to take you a little bit of data entry time is going to be your open house flyer, but remember, they can tell you spent time on it too. I mean, if you created a listing for them without even really knowing anything about the property except for what's already online, you've given them an extra tool that they can use. The MLS doesn't reach out to people. You do. So when it comes down to it, you're giving them an additional avenue that they can market themselves as a resource to prospective borrowers. Harlow's question, what happens when you share on Social Pro? Social Pro it's actually a tool that we used to offer. We no longer offer it. There are still members that have Social Pro, but what it was is it was a tool that allowed you to have a landing page on your Facebook fan page that had your bio information, had some specifics about, you could do a listing type of template on it, but when Facebook changed over to the timeline, it actually really reduced a lot of the functionality in Social Pro. So we discontinued the product, and we're going to revamp it as a different type of product somewhere down the line here. But for now, it doesn't really work with the way Facebook looks anymore. So it's not as effective as it used to be. Dennis's question, is there any way to merge another visual such as Rate Watch into the video presentation? There isn't, but I would tell you, Dennis, that you can do that on your email that you send to this partner. So remember, you're going to send them 2 links. You're going to send them one to the open house flyer. You're going to send them another to this total cost. But you can also go to your Rate Watch, grab a copy of the image of today's candlestick charts, paste it into that email, and then give some color around what that is and what that means to you as an originator watching the rates and ensuring that the borrowers are always going to be able to lock at the best time. So definitely a great idea, Dennis. Incorporate that. I think it's wonderful. I'm going to add it to my Realtor listing pack here, but perfect idea. Now, if you guys don't know how to copy the Rate Watch charts, let's get Rate Watch open here. It's actually very simple. You can right-click on the chart and hit copy and then paste it directly into any email. So 1 second while it opens up, and I'll pull that over to the other screen. Oops, sorry about that, guys. I know it's taking a little longer than normal to open this up. There we go. Okay, so here's your Rate Watch screen, and you can see that over the last couple of days, we've really taken a pretty major hit in the MBS market. This is a great trend to be able to show people. You can always right-click on it and hit copy, and then you can paste it into the body of your email. Or, and I've seen this a lot lately, use that snipping tool that I showed you earlier, and you can grab an image, and then you can doctor up the image a little bit. So, for instance, I can grab the entire Rate Watch instead of just the chart. And then if I want to, I can do things like draw lines on it. If I want to draw trend lines, you can cut pieces of the image out. But obviously, this is not a very good straight line. You want to use a good straight line. But there's different types of pens you can choose. There's highlighting that you can use. But if you have other screen capture tools like Snagit, it has a much better markup tools inside. But you've got some very cursory ways that you can mark up these images here. And once you're done with it, you can literally copy it and paste it into your email, and along with those other 2 links that you've created for your Realtor packet, I think you've got a pretty solid presentation going forward. All right, so that takes care of all the questions, and I am starting to lose my voice, so I think we're going to go ahead and call it for today. And I'm not going to save this. I did record today's call, so I will be posting this to our coaching call archive, and let me show you where that's at before you guys leave. So if you go to the mortgagecoach.com website, you can hover over the Community tab and choose Coaching Call Archive. Now, if you didn't get a chance to see last week's call, I actually covered all the new Edge features and how to build Edge videos. So you can check this one out if you'd like to. This week's call, I'm actually going to post it in our regular coaching call archive here too, because this is a very specific call. But it'll also be behind this link up here. Usually I overwrite the Q&A calls each week, so they would always appear underneath this link. But since today's was a little bit more of an independent call, I'll go ahead and post it as an additional one here in the August area. But if you guys have any questions, please do let us know over at support@mortgagecoach.com. We'd be happy to give you further answers. Next week, and actually I have Ed on the call with us today. I think next week we're going to try and do an FHA 203K presentation, and I'm going to bring Ed in to help deliver that, and we're going to show you some examples of it and how to get that out to your prospective borrowers. So stay tuned for next week. Make sure to join our Tuesday calls with Dave Savage so you can learn all the theory, all the sales tactics, and then come and join us on Thursday to learn how to put it into action. Thanks, guys. Have a wonderful day, and let us know in support if we can help at all. Thank you.